Welcome, race fans, to Pump the Brakes, the one, the only, the Cadillac of Formula One podcasts. I am your host, the Pit Lane Patriot. This week, we will recap all of the events that occurred at the Barcelona Grand Prix, including Lewis Hamilton's win and Kimi Antonelli's DNF. But first, I want to tell you all a quick story. This is the story of a boy born and raised in New York City who had a dream that his favorite sports franchise in the world would win a world title. All his life, this team sucked. The last time they were good, he was barely a baby. He stayed loyal, he stayed with them, and for 32 years, he was a fan of only this team. That boy is none other than the Pit Lane Patriot himself, and that team is the New York Knicks. And ladies and gentlemen, this past weekend, that small boy's dream came true. And why am I telling you this? Because it tells you to never give up. Never lose faith. This Cadillac journey is just starting, and we are going to be amazing one day, no matter how long it takes. I don't care if it takes 32 years. I spent my entire life rooting for the Knicks, and it was so sweet when the Knicks championship finally happened this past weekend. Never stop believing, folks. And if you're wondering why I may appear to be speaking a bit low, it's because I lost my voice appropriately screaming for the Knicks. All right, let's talk about Barcelona.
And the Grand Prix is underway. Good reaction time for Kimi Antonelli. He's close. It's not the launch that Lewis Hamilton wanted on the soft tires.
Okay, so Barcelona. Lewis Hamilton has won for Ferrari. Kimi Antonelli's winning streak, over. George Russell got the response weekend he desperately needed. And Lando Norris and McLaren are back on the podium. And the championship just woke up, people. Because for weeks this season, we're starting to really feel like Kimi Antonelli and Mercedes were running away from everybody. 5 straight wins, a growing lead, a 19-year-old looking at like the center of the entire sport, and then Barcelona happened. The GOAT, Lewis Hamilton, wins a Grand Prix for Ferrari, his first in 40 races. It's been 40 races since this man has touched the top step of the podium. Congrats. On top of that, Kimi Antonelli had his retirement, Russell scored big, and Norris scored big. So now all of a sudden, the title fight does not feel as finished as it did a week ago. It feels very much alive. As Hamilton himself said over the weekend, the fight is on. Barcelona is often viewed very similar to how a test track is viewed, because it is a test track. It's used many times throughout the season and in the off season for Formula One and other forms of motorsport racing tests. And that's because the Barcelona Grand Prix circuit is very technical in that it tests a lot of different aspects of the car. So going into Monaco, I had a few questions that I really wanted answered about this season. Like, was Mercedes really that untouchable? Was Ferrari's Monaco pace real? Could Hamilton actually win in red? And could my boy George Russell stop the bleeding? Could our champion McLaren respond? Could Red Bull build anything? And could our midfield actually look a little clearer? And surprisingly, Barcelona gave us the answers to a lot of these. And the biggest answer was this.
More history for Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton wins a Grand Prix for Ferrari.
Lewis Hamilton is not just getting comfortable at Ferrari. Lewis Hamilton can win at Ferrari. So before we get to the race, we got to start with the qualifying, because George Russell was the story on Saturday. After the last couple weekends, Russell needed something. He needed a clean weekend. He needed a statement. He needed to remind everybody that this championship fight is not just the Kimi Antonelli show. And in qualifying, he did exactly that. Russell put the Mercedes on pole, and that's not just some kind of lucky pole. It was not chaos. It wasn't rain. It wasn't like a weird red flag timing. He was that fast all weekend. He topped FP1, he topped FP3, and then he delivered in qualifying where it mattered. And that matters because George Russell has had too many races so far where the pace was there, but the result was not. Like, Monaco hurt, Canada definitely hurt. The narrative was really starting to get away from him. And then he comes to Barcelona, a proper measuring stick track, and takes pole. It's exactly what he needed. It's exactly what I wanted to see from the guy that I still believe can win this championship. But right next to him, on the front row, his former teammate, Lewis Hamilton. And that immediately gave the race a different feeling because Hamilton has been building towards this. The Ferrari project has finally started to feel more real. Second in Monaco, more confidence, more rhythm. And then he qualifies second in Barcelona, just behind Russell. So now you have Russell trying to respond to Antonelli, Hamilton trying to win for Ferrari, Antonelli starting in third, trying to continue the streak. Norris fourth, Verstappen in fifth, his teammate Hadjar in sixth, and then Piastri back in seventh. It's a loaded front group. And then Charles Leclerc, unfortunately, starts from 10th after crashing in Q3. Before the race has even begun, Ferrari has both sides of the emotion. Hamilton on the front row, Leclerc in trouble again. So when the lights finally went out in the Grand Prix, Russell did exactly what he had to do. He got a good enough launch, held off Hamilton, and kept his lead. Directly behind him, the top group mostly held formation. Russell, then Hamilton, then Antonelli, then Norris, then Verstappen. And at first, it looked like Mercedes might be controlling this race as they've controlled races so far this season. Russell was out front, Antonelli was right there in third, Mercedes had track position with both cars, and with the way that this season has gone, that felt dangerous for everyone else. But Barcelona was hot, the tires were suffering, and that became the first big story of the race. You could see pace falling away. You could hear the drivers complaining. You could hear Norris talking about the sliding. Verstappen was talking about the car feeling unstable. Russell was leading, but he was not cruising away like some sort of untouchable Mercedes. This was a tire race, and tire races are where strategy can get spicy. Hamilton started on softs, but that did not get him the lead at the start, so Ferrari had to find another way. And they did. Ferrari started leaning into a 3-stop strategy. This is very rare, but it happens. At first, it's a gamble. Anytime you add another stop, you're saying we believe fresh tire pace is worth the risk and will catch up the difference in time. If it works, you look like geniuses. If it doesn't, you look like you outsmarted yourself. For Hamilton and Ferrari, it worked, and it worked beautifully. And that was a race-winning story. Hamilton's first stop put him into the fight, but the key was the second phase of the race because Ferrari brought him in again on lap 23, and that was the moment where the 3-stop strategy became real. Hamilton came out and immediately had pace. Real Russell fighting pace. He was flying on fresher tires. He was taking chunks of time off the Mercedes. And now the race had changed. Russell was still physically leading, Antonelli was still a threat, but Hamilton was charging and becoming a danger. And then Ferrari got the break they needed. Fernando Alonso retired from his home Grand Prix, and the virtual safety car came out. That gave Ferrari a huge opportunity. They brought Hamilton in for his final pit stop under the virtual safety car, and because everybody was driving to restricted speeds, Hamilton got the benefit of a cheaper third pit stop. He came back out, still leading, fresh hard tires, clean air, and track position. And at that point, the race started to feel like Hamilton's to lose. And it was. That's the thing about great races. Sometimes it's not just about speed. It's about the driver, the strategy, the tire management, and the team all lining up. And for Ferrari, that has not always happened. But in Barcelona, it finally did. For once, the Ferrari strategy was not a meme. It was actually a weapon. And Hamilton used it, and he won. Now let's just pause on what this win means. Lewis Hamilton winning for Ferrari is one of those sentences that still feels slightly fake even after it happens. Because we've talked about this for so long. Hamilton in red, Hamilton chasing the Ferrari dream, Hamilton trying to prove that this is not just a legacy move or a marketing move or a romance move. And then Barcelona gives him the moment, his first Grand Prix win for Ferrari. First win since leaving Mercedes. First time that the whole project he's been working on feels alive. And this was not just a lucky win where 3 cars crashed and Hamilton happened to be there. Nope. He had pace. He managed tires. He made the strategy work. He stretched the lead when it mattered. He looked like the GOAT that he is. He crossed the line nearly 20 seconds ahead of everyone else. That's a real commanding race win from the greatest of all time. And for Ferrari, this changes the energy because before the question was, can Hamilton get comfortable? Now the question is, can Hamilton fight for this championship, which he's currently sitting in second for? It's a very different question. And yes, he's still got a lot of ground to make up in the race against Antonelli. Antonelli still leads this championship. Mercedes still has the best overall position. But Hamilton is now second in the standings. He has momentum. He has Ferrari believing. And Toto Wolff even said recently that if Hamilton smells blood, he goes. Well, I'm pretty sure right now Hamilton smells blood. And Barcelona might be the weekend where Ferrari goes from hopeful to dangerous. But if Hamilton was a big winner, then Kimi Antonelli was definitely the biggest championship twist and biggest loser of the race. Ladies and gentlemen, Kimi Antonelli's unbelievable win streak has come to an end in Barcelona. 5 straight Grand Prix wins, gone. First retirement of the season, and it happened late. I mean, he was right there in the fight. And that's what makes it so painful. This was not Antonelli having a bad weekend and disappearing quietly. He was fast, he was pressuring Russell, he felt like he had more pace, he was dealing with the threat of a track limit, and he was still pushing. He even got past Russell late in the race to take second, and the car just let him down. That is a gut punch, but it happened to Russell, it can absolutely happen to Antonelli. This is what happens in racing. So Antonelli walks away from Barcelona with 0 points. And for the first time this season, Kimi Antonelli looks human. Not slow, not exposed or overrated, just human. Things happen. And that honestly might be pretty important for this championship because every great title fight needs a moment where the leader gets hit. And that was this moment. Now we get to see how Antonelli responds to something like that. Winning 5 in a row is one kind of pressure. Bouncing back after a painful DNF is another. We know Russell can do it. Can Antonelli do it? For a 19-year-old championship leader, this is part of his education. He still leads. He's still the guy everyone's chasing, but Barcelona reminded us that Formula One can humble anybody, even the kid who looks unstoppable.
Whoa! Problem. He's breaking down! He's breaking down! Kimi Antonelli had passed his teammate, but he will not finish the Grand Prix!
Now, George Russell. This was a good weekend. Pole position, second place, big points. a response after Monaco. And yet, I think it probably feels complicated because if you are George Russell, this weekend did a lot of what you needed. You beat Antonelli in qualifying, you led the race, you finished second, you cut into the gap massively, and you got yourself back into the conversation. But at the same time, Hamilton won. And Antonelli was actually ahead of you on pace late before he retired. So even in a good Russell weekend, the story's not completely clean. And that's why this season is so fascinating for George. He's clearly fast, he clearly belongs in the title discussion. But he needs wins. And at some point, podiums and explanations are not enough. Especially when your teammate is Kimi Antonelli and the guy who is now chasing him is Lewis Hamilton in a Ferrari that suddenly looks alive. So yeah, Russell should feel good about Barcelona, but he should not feel satisfied. This was more of a recovery. It wasn't a knockout punch. He needed this result, so he got it. Now he needs to build on it because he's very much back in this championship fight. Barcelona keeps him in the room, keeps him in the conversation right with Antonelli and now Hamilton. But Austria, Silverstone, the next few rounds, he really needs to start making some noise. So McLaren clearly needed a clean weekend, and they mostly got one. Lando Norris finished third, Oscar Piastri finished fifth. After the pain of Monaco, after reliability issues, after a tough stretch where McLaren did not look as sharp as a reigning championship team, Barcelona was important. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but it was important. Norris back on the podium matters. Piastri in fifth matters. Both cars in the top five definitely matters. This was not McLaren like taking over a race. They were not going to win. At no point during this race did I think McLaren had a shot at winning. They were not the main threat to Hamilton. They were not controlling the weekend by any means. But they were very solid. And sometimes after messy weekends, solid is exactly what you need. The bigger question is whether solid is enough. Because Mercedes is winning, and now Ferrari's winning. Hamilton has momentum, Antonelli's leading, and Russell is back in the fight. So McLaren cannot live on good points. If they want to be in this conversation, they need wins. Norris especially needs wins if he's going to stay in this championship picture. But Barcelona at least stops the bleeding. It reminds everyone that McLaren is still a serious team. Still fast, still able to collect podiums. The concern is that the championship may be moving on from them while they're just trying to stabilize. So for McLaren, Barcelona was a good response, but not a championship statement. They need one of those, and soon. So Red Bull. Now, Red Bull had a pretty solid weekend. It wasn't spectacular, but it was solid. Max Verstappen finished fourth. Isaac Hadjar finished sixth. That's some pretty useful points for a team that's still trying to figure out where it fits in this new 2026 order. For Max, fourth is fine, but fine is really not the standard we associate with him. That's the weird thing about this season. Like a normal driver finishing fourth in Barcelona would be a good result, but Max Verstappen finishing fourth feels like, okay, what's missing? Because Red Bull does seem better than it looked earlier in the year. There are some signs of life here. The car's not dead. Max is still Max, and he's still hanging around the front group. But he's not dictating races, and that changes the whole feeling. Red Bull is not hunted right now. They're hunting, and they're still not close enough. Hadjar, though, continues to impress me. He came into Barcelona and did a great job, despite the fact that he had just got his Monaco podium taken from him because of a late review on the Alpine decision, bumping Pierre Gasly back into the podium and Hadjar down to fourth. But he did great. After a Monaco podium, you always wonder, was that a one-off? Was that a chaos? You know? Was it just the weirdest race on the calendar? But then he came to Barcelona and he had a rough start, drops down, recovers, and he finished in sixth. It's a strong response. It tells you the kid has something. Because Barcelona's not Monaco. You don't just luck into pace there. You have to race. You have to manage, you have to recover. And Isaac Hadjar did that. So for Red Bull this weekend, Max is still in the fight. Hadjar's becoming real. But the team still needs to find more if it wants to fight with Mercedes and Ferrari, because it's not really there yet. And before we move on to the midfield, we have to go back to Ferrari for one more second, because Ferrari won the race, but Ferrari also had another painful Charles Leclerc weekend. Leclerc had pace, he had moments, he had moves, he gained positions early, but qualifying hurt him after the Q3 crash. And then the race ended with power steering problems and another retirement. That's brutal. Because while Hamilton is becoming the headline, Leclerc is starting to collect weekends that feel like missed chances. Monaco hurt, Barcelona hurt. And for Ferrari, this creates a weird emotional split. On one side, it's pure joy for Hamilton, and then on the other side, you have Leclerc frustrated more than he's ever been. And that matters, because if Ferrari wants to fight Mercedes in the Constructors' Championship, they need both cars. Can't just become Team Hamilton highlights. They need Leclerc scoring big too. And emotionally, they need to keep him in this, because Leclerc at his best is one of the fastest drivers on the grid. If Ferrari give him a clean car on a clean weekend, he can win races. But right now, the momentum in that garage is shifting towards Hamilton. And Barcelona made that louder. Hamilton leaves as the hero, Leclerc with another what happened weekend. Something to watch. Now the midfield. This is where Barcelona really helps clarify things. Alpine had a strong day as expected. Pierre Gasly finished 7th after celebrating his return podium from Monaco. Colapinto finished 8th but dropped down to 10th after a post-race time penalty. Still, double points Alpine is valuable, especially after a heartbreak in Monaco. Racing Bulls kept their momentum going too. Liam Lawson finished in 8th and Arvid Lindblad finished in 9th. Both in the points means Racing Bulls followed up their monster Monaco weekend with more points in Barcelona. which is important. So Racing Bulls may not be in the fight at the very front, but they are becoming one of the more interesting midfield teams right now because they do keep having these consistent weekends with both Liam and Arvid. Definitely one to keep a watch out for. Audi had a mixed weekend too. Bortoleto finished 11th. Hulkenberg retired after running into the points early. That hurts because when you're in the midfield, those chances matter. Williams had a rough home race for Carlos Sainz. He finished 12th. And Alex Albon was not classified after losing a huge amount of time. Not a weekend Williams wanted to see. Aston Martin, a nightmare. Stroll retired early with a gearbox problem. Alonso retired at home, and that triggered the virtual safety car to help Hamilton win the race. After stealing the point from Cadillac in Monaco, Aston came into Barcelona and got nothing. And Haas, Ocon finished 13th. Behrman late retired. So when you look at the midfield after Barcelona, I think the story is more Alpine and Racing Bulls made the most of it. And they continue to make the most of the season. Aston Martin is still a disaster. Williams and Haas were more forgettable, and I really expected more from them this season. Audi had an opportunity yet again and couldn't cash in. And Cadillac had a weekend that deserves its own conversation because Barcelona showed us something. Not something pretty, but it showed us something important. So let's talk about Team Cadillac. So Barcelona wasn't like Monaco. For Cadillac, Monaco was heartbreaking. Monaco was pain because Cadillac almost had something magical. Checo crossed the line 10th, first point was right there, and the penalty came and the point disappeared. It was heartbreak. But Barcelona was different. Barcelona was not heartbreak. It was information. And honestly, not all information feels good. So, Checo finishes P14, Valtteri Bottas retired on lap 15. No points, no miracles, no we almost had it moment like Monaco. But it was still an important weekend because Barcelona is a truth-telling track. This is not a street circuit where chaos can hide your weaknesses. It's not a race where you can survive your way into something weird. This is a normal Grand Prix circuit that asks the car real questions. High-speed balance, tire degradation, long run pace, setup quality, aero efficiency, how the car behaves when the tires get hot, how it holds together across a proper stint. And what Barcelona told Cadillac was pretty clear. The progress is real, but the gap is real too. So in qualifying, Checo was P19 and Bottas was P20. Now on paper, sounds bad. And look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend P19 and P20 are good. It's not. Nobody's throwing a party for the back row, but the details here matter. Cadillac's own read was that the gap to the midfield was getting smaller. They were encouraged that that Checo was just a little over 10th behind one of the Williams. And Bottas even said it felt like they were closer to Williams than before and moving further ahead than Aston Martin. That matters because in year one, those are your targets, right? So not Mercedes, not Ferrari, not McLaren. The targets are really your Aston Martin, Williams, Haas, Audi, and the lower end of the midfield fight. And when Cadillac can say, okay, we're still at the back, but we're closer than we were, that's not nothing. That's the grind. That's the boring, unsexy part of building a Formula One team. It's what you go through so you can celebrate. I did this with my Knicks for 2 decades, and the celebration was sweet. But you got to go through these things. You don't wake up one morning and suddenly jump 5 tenths. You close a 10th, then another 10th, and so on. You stop losing time in one corner, and you figure out one tire issue, one update at a time. So in the race, Checo started P19, finished P14. It's Cadillac's best official finishing position so far. Again, not points, not glory, but progress. It's our best finish in a race ever. That's a hell of a lot of progress. He got the car to the flag. He managed the tires. He completed a race on a track that was always going to expose the Mario Andretti Cadillac 26, Mac 26. And after the race, Checo basically said exactly that. Barcelona showed the team what it needs to improve. And that's the right takeaway. This was not a weekend where you come out saying, wow, we shocked the world. This was a weekend where you come out saying, okay, now we know. We know more about our car, more about our runtime limitations, more about our gaps, more about updates we need to hit in the coming races. And Checo even said it himself that updates are coming in Austria and with more developments planned after that. That's huge because now the question becomes, what does Cadillac do with all this information it has? We've been begging for data, right? Now we've got some. Barcelona exposed the weakness. Austria starts the response. That's kind of the storyline here. Okay, we do have to talk about Bottas for a second, though, because this was another rough weekend on the Valtteri Bottas side of the garage. Like, he had issues in practice. He had an FP3 problem. He started P20, and then he retired on lap 15. This is something that we have to start to watch here. Not because Bottas is suddenly bad. I'm not doing a lazy take here, but Cadillac needs both cars running. Every lap matters for this team. Every long run matters. Every race finish matters. Every time one car retires early, that's lost data, lost comparison, lost tire information, lost setup learning. Lost race experience for the team. For a new team, that hurts. Checo getting to the end is good, but Cadillac needs 2 cars to get to the end more often. It's part of becoming a real F1 operation. It's a team sport. Cannot build a whole development picture with one side of the garage constantly fighting issues. So for Bottas, I don't think the story is he's in trouble. Definitely not. I think the story is Cadillac needs him to get cleaner weekends because we really do. Because at the end of the day, Valtteri Bottas with a stable car is really valuable. He's experienced, he's calm. He knows what a good team feels like. He can help develop things, but he needs laps, and Cadillac needs laps. And Barcelona reminded us that reliability and clean running are still part of our project, and that's okay. So what's my final read on our team Cadillac and Barcelona? It's simple. Monaco showed that Cadillac can almost steal a point. Barcelona showed that Cadillac still has work to do to earn a point on pure pace. And both those things can be true. That's the season right now. There's progress, there's belief, there's foundation. Mac 26 is not some hopeless car. But Barcelona does not lie, and Cadillac is still at the back. Team still needs performance, still needs reliability, still needs cleaner weekends. The good news is they know it. Checo knows it, Bottas knows it, Graham Loudon knows it. And now the upgrades are coming. So I'm not leaving Barcelona crushed. It's not where we are like, oh, everything's over. This is just where we are for now. We'll see what Austria brings. And there you have it, folks. That is your Barcelona Grand Prix review. Join us next week where we will talk about the Red Bull Ring and the Austrian Grand Prix. See you then.